Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nishant, and welcome to another episode of the Nishant Garg Show. The mission of the show is to spread awareness on mindfulness practices, psychology, mental health, and spirituality. My job on the show is to invite world class performers to share the practices to live a fulfilled life. And this episode guest is Belinda-Jane. Belinda is a qualified chartered accountant through Deloitte in 1998. Her business experience includes working in corporate finance, financial control, banking, assurance, strategy consulting, tax, and project management. Belinda has a passion for health and well-being. She believes that people are the most valuable asset any organization has. Belinda regularly writes articles and gives talks on well-being. Belinda is also a member of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants Health and Well-being Group. In this episode, she will discuss a lot on mental health, well-being, how to be emotionally fit, and to learn more, keep listening. Belinda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nishan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I would like to start off with something funny. How would your family describe what do you do for a living?
I think that my family being basically a bunch of chartered accountants regard what I do for a living as being relatively carefree, which isn't entirely accurate, but it's how they view what I do.
Carefree. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yes, I qualified as a chartered accountant over 22 years ago, and I spent many long hours in the corporate working environment, and pretty much for the past, I think about 6 years or so, I've been focusing on holistic well-being, and I set up a business in the well-being field a couple of years ago, and I now focus on a quality of life. And it doesn't mean that it's not a lot of work, because I think living in a state of well-being and being healthy does require quite a bit of work, and running a business requires quite a bit of work, but the accountancy profession is quite rigid and quite structured, and the hours are very long. There's reporting deadlines, and there's certain things that need to be done by certain timelines. And I think they think that my life is pretty carefree now, that I'm not directly involved in financial management or strategy or directly in the accounting profession.
And you started your company Well Advisors 6 years ago.
No, so I got more involved in the well-being field about 6 years ago, and I finally started my company 2 years ago.
Okay. So what was your motivation to get into the holistic well-being after having worked in corporate finance for almost 22 years?
It has been my lifelong passion. It has been something I have wanted to do my entire life. When I left school, the degree that my parents paid for me to do was BCom accounting and to become a chartered accountant, which I did. And then I actually enjoyed that career for quite some time. But I've always been fascinated by meditation and yoga, and living in a state of health and well-being has always been fundamentally very important to me, because I have struggled a lot with mental health issues throughout most of my life, and eating disorders, and health and fitness have not been things that have come naturally to me in my life. So it's been something that I've had to work hard at. So I got into this business largely because it is a passion of mine, and also to keep myself well.
And you mentioned that your parents paid for your college. So did you always want to be accountant, or you just wanted to do it for your parents?
Yeah, that is a big thing. I did it for my parents. For a large part of my early years in my adult life, I was a people pleaser. And, I wanted to do graphic design and art, actually. And, it was a fantastic opportunity to go to university. I didn't really know anything about accounting or business or finance. And it was a fantastic learning opportunity. I met many wonderful people along the way, and I will be forever grateful for the experience and the education that I have received, and it has been invaluable and is still invaluable today. But I was always interested in art and graphics.
And when you started working on your accounting career, were you enjoying that, or were you just hating it. So what was your experience look like since you did it to please your parents?
I absolutely loved it. It was the best experience of my life when I started doing my articles. I got a client that was a local airline that, traveled internationally. I traveled internationally a lot with them. I did design various branch audits in overseas entities for them. So I traveled the world extensively during my articles, which was 3 years. I achieved tremendously well. I was a top-rated audit clerk. I started a team newsletter. I made so many new friends. I was part of so many teams and groups. I designed so many different programs. It was a fantastic, really challenging and different experience for me. And it was something that I would never have ordinarily placed myself in. So I absolutely loved it. And, I loved the people that I met and the absolute freedom and the ability it gave me to travel.
And the reason I'm asking is because a lot of people do things just because their parents want them to do it, and
Yes.
they hate it, and people just don't know how to come out of that. And this is amazing to hear that you are enjoying that part.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I stayed directly in the profession for so many years, is because I found the work I really thoroughly enjoyed that work. But I did have a problem in that my emotional intelligence and my ability to express myself and to relate to others and to openly connect with other people was extremely limited because I was a big people pleaser. And I always thought I had to present a perfect image and that I wasn't allowed to have any problems. And that's when the big problems really began for me.
Is it because of lack of vulnerability in the corporate sector?
Definitely there is the lack of vulnerability. And I also think it's that in the corporate world, it's, I think people are sort of expected to be like machines in a way, and you've got to deliver certain amounts of work in a certain time, and they don't really regard the person. And also, I was a female in a very male-dominant world, and I lived in South Africa, and I worked in the UK for 6.5 years after I qualified, and I worked in corporate finance over there in my early years. And, I was one of 2 girls in the whole department, and there were a lot of sexist comments and a lot of inappropriate comments made towards me. And I didn't know how to handle, I think, sexual harassment. And, I really, I struggled with that. And there was no way for me to express that I felt harassed or to speak to anybody, and all these issues just built up for me over time.
And when you were going through those problematic times in your career when you were in UK, to be specific, London, right?
Yes.
How did you manage your emotions and well-being at that point?
Well, that is the thing, is that I didn't manage it. So I turned to alcohol. I would go out with my entire department and we would get horrifically drunk most evenings, or when we closed
How
deals.
old were you at the time? How old were you
at that time, I was about 26 years old.
Okay. And coming back to emotional intelligence, when did you start working on this piece of your life?
I only started working on it when I got forced to work on it. Once I had returned to South Africa, after being in London for 6.5 years, I got into a terrible relationship that was extremely abusive, and I was working very long hours. By this time, I was working in consulting, and I was traveling a lot in my consulting work. And I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and my brothers and sisters were concerned about me. And they wanted me to go to a doctor and to find out what was wrong with me, because, I always seemed to be run down and I was getting quite depressed. And it was really then that I started to learn how to reflect and to look at myself and to try and understand myself and to understand why I was acting the way that I was acting and why I was actually so unhappy at the time.
Was it because of your not having a good state of mental well-being?
Yes, absolutely. That was definitely part of it. And by this stage, having come back to South Africa and having got into that terribly abusive relationship, I started to take drugs. So I started taking drugs when I was about 31 years old. And when that relationship ended, I was left with a severe drug addiction problem. And I had an alcohol problem already with that beforehand. I didn't realize there was a problem. I just drank, to sort of resolve all my problems and feel better in the past. But now added to that, I had an a drug problem. And I was working in consulting and I was traveling a lot. And I didn't know how to admit that I had even started to take drugs or that I had an alcohol problem because it was simply not allowed. It wasn't a professional thing to have, and it wasn't a way that we dealt with problems in my family, so it was something that I wouldn't admit to. So when I went to go and see a doctor at the hospital, I got actually diagnosed with 4 chronic mental illnesses. And, it was because I wasn't openly speaking about my addiction problems. And, everyone knew that there was something fundamentally underlying that was really, really wrong with me. And I also did. And I was so scared. And I was diagnosed with epilepsy, schizophrenia, bipolar, and psychosis, which was absolutely horrendous. And I remember at the time it got put on my medical aid card. And, I had to show this medical aid card at the pharmacy when I went to get my chronic medication. And the chronic medication flattened out my feelings and it made me feel dead. So, it was a very scary time for me.
It was scary. And some people, I would say a lot of people may be going through the same situation or similar situation. What advice
Absolutely.
would you give to somebody who is going through mental disorder?
Yeah, and this is the big thing, is that I really feel that there should be no stigma around mental illness. And I don't think that, we should take it on our shoulders and say, there's something wrong with me, I'm to blame for a mental illness, I'll never fit into what society expects of me, what my parents expect of me, what my children, what my husband or wife or friends expect of me. Mental illness is, for me, what I've begun to understand over the years of dealing with it and having worked through it, is that it's largely to do with the circumstances of how we've lived our lives, what our belief systems are, how we think. And sometimes it's because we try to be so many things for so many different people. We're so busy trying to please people and meet certain expectations that sometimes are really impossible for us to meet or are not actually our purpose in life. And when we try to excel at something that that's not our purpose and that doesn't really resonate with us, that's when we reach a crisis point, I believe. And, mental illnesses come out in various different forms, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong if you're experiencing, a bad state of mental health. There's nothing wrong with that. It just takes time to reflect and to work through. And, I'd say, like, even if you do have to go on medication for a short period of time, which I had to go on a lot of medication, and I did. I wanted to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital for the rest of my life, and I wanted to commit suicide. And there was really no hope for me. That's why my life right now is a miracle, because everyone thought that I was the complete write-off. And in fact, my older brother committed suicide. So, my parents were absolutely devastated, and they thought that I was going to commit suicide as well. But with the right treatment, and it took a lot of time to work through, I began to understand it's not fundamentally something that's wrong with me. It's experiences that I need to learn how to handle, and I need to learn how to change my behaviors and, speak about it, be open about it. It's not the end of the world.
This is very powerful to understand that even if we are going through any mental illness, it doesn't mean that we have something wrong, or we are wrong, or we are a failure. It's just to experience that, and this is not going to be easy. It's just to embrace everything and what you did in those days. Could you walk us through the process or steps you took after you got diagnosed with mental illness to be where you are at now? I know this is a very broad question, but because if any listener is going through the same process, they can take those bullet points and apply in their lives to move forward.
Absolutely. I can say this up front, first of all, is that there is no overnight cure to mental illness, and all of us have some sort of personality disorder or mental illness in some way in our lives. Nobody is perfect, and nobody is really, I believe, nobody's really normal. There's no such thing as normal. In fact, we're all unique. And, when you start to accept the fact that, hang on, things are not right in my life, I'm feeling unhappy. First of all, you've got to admit that things aren't right in your life and that you feel unhappy. With me, I think I didn't want to have any help. I had given up. I was dead certain that I wanted to commit suicide, and I was actually forced. I was chained down, and I was put in a hospital, chained to a bed and tranquilized. And then I got a court section put against me that I had to go into a rehab and treatment facility for at least a year. So, this was already after about 10 years of having to try and deal with this thing. And, it was only while I was in that treatment that, and I even said then, please send me to the mental institution for the rest of my life so that I can just have tranquilizers. And the guy said to me, listen, you know what's going to happen to you at the mental institution? You'll be raped with a broomstick and they'll abuse you nonstop in that mental institution. He says, you come off all your meds now and you pull yourself together and you'll have a great life to look forward to. And I didn't believe that was possible for me, but sometimes it just takes, somebody else intervening and helping us with that very first step on the way out of a mental illness, because there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt that comes with a mental illness, and we don't want to admit that there's something wrong with us, because, it's kind of like admitting, look, there's something wrong with me. Things are not going well for me. And it's taking that first step. And I know that, in fact, many people don't want to take that first step. And I've seen it. I've been in so many facilities. I've been in over 15 facilities. And I've seen people run away, people do the most insane things just to get out of those facilities. And I have done the same myself. I've been even expelled from one facility. So, it's very difficult to initially go into treatment. And then what you've got to realize is that even a 21-day program isn't going to sort your whole life out. So you aren't going to suddenly walk out of a treatment facility and your whole life is going to be changed, okay? It's a daily thing that you have to work on, just like everyone has to work on a job each day. That's why I say health and well-being is a daily job. It's something that we need to work on every single day. And there's little things that we can do, like writing reflections in the diary, doing meditation, doing yoga. There are little things along the way that can certainly help us. And exercise is also a big one there. But I would say don't expect to get better overnight. Let go of your pride, let go of the expectations that other people have for you, and say, listen, there's something, I'm not feeling great. How do I get the help that I can get? And I think the first step to take is asking that question and reaching out for some form of help. And also to accept that it's not going to be easy. Because nothing in life that is worthwhile and that is going to actually last in the long term is going to happen easily or is going to happen overnight. And mental illness is quite a big thing. And it's just like anything in life. If you want to exceed at anything in life, if you want to become a professional athlete, you have to train for so many hours every day. Just like if you want to become really excellent at what you do, like you do, Nishan, with your podcasts. You do a lot of podcasts. You're brilliant at what you do because you do it so often, because you do so many, because you're really interested in the people that you're working with. You dedicate a lot of time to it. And if you want to be healthy and fit and live your best life, you've got to dedicate time to that. You've got to put hours into it. You've got to, it's a matter of wanting the best in life for yourself. And sometimes we reach the point where we don't want anything in life for ourselves. We actually don't even want the best because we hate ourselves so much, because we feel so much shame, so much guilt, so much disappointment, so much failure. And that is probably like the rock bottom point. I don't even like that term rock bottom, because I think we reach many lows throughout our lives as we transition and evolve. But it's taking that first step really, and then it's an ongoing practice every single day.
Yes, this is an ongoing practice. And thank you so much for explaining your story. And this is very heart-touching. I'm sure our listeners will definitely feel that. And connecting to the dots, after you were diagnosed with 4 mental illnesses and you were taking medication, did you perform any mindfulness practices to feel better or to come out of those illness traumas?
So, yes, a lot of the therapy work is writing a diary every night and reflecting, answering 5 different questions, and contemplating, which is similar to meditating in the early stages, and reflecting on answers to those questions. I went to a Catholic school, so I turned to the Bible a lot. I read a lot of self-help literature and books. Also worked on my belief therapy. The rehab facilities that I was in were Christian, so we did a lot of prayer and a lot of singing that helped a lot. Since I've been out of the rehab, I've done a lot of yoga. So I can't live without doing yoga, and that yoga is not just the physical hatha yoga, but it's the Raja yoga, which is the yoga for the mind, which involves meditation. It's, the singing yoga and the nada yoga, which reattunes the frequencies throughout your body. And this is something that I study very seriously at the South African School of Yoga now. I also do go to a yoga studio and I practice physical yoga postures. I also exercise every day. So there are definitely, certainly mindfulness practices that I engage myself in every single day that keeps me sane. And there's nothing like tapping into that infinite source of divine bliss and divine fulfillment that changes the quality of my day every single day. So mindfulness is absolutely, absolutely imperative.
And mindfulness is something that we get to do it every single day to improve the quality of our life. If we do it one day, and if we don't do it for next consecutive days, our quality may degrade. So to keep up the quality, we get to do it most often.
Absolutely. It's like a petrol tank. You can fill up your petrol tank by doing some meditation, say, with the energy, and then you use that energy up over time, and you need to keep on topping that up if you want to be going at your best. So that is what mindfulness does for me. It tops up my energy levels and it makes me operate at a really good frequency and a really good level in my life. And it's not like I don't come across challenges in my daily life, but it just makes my life that much more manageable.
Challenges are going to come. They are not going to reduce. Just with mindfulness, we can handle that in a better way.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Yoga is your favorite thing. And coming back to the five questions that you were asking yourself every single morning, could you explain those 5 questions, what they look like?
Okay, so yes, sure. Let me think about it. So the first question is, what did I achieve today? So what is the one thing that I achieved that I'm proud of myself for today? Because we can be very hard on ourselves and we can be very negative. So it's important to look back on your day and reflect on what you have actually achieved, just one thing that you've achieved during the day. Then to look at what are 3 areas in which I dealt with people that I'm not happy with the way that I dealt with people in. So looking at 3 areas that I interacted with people that I could have done better. Then looking at how could I have improved in those 3 ways I interacted with people. Then looking at what is one thing that I want to achieve tomorrow that will bring me a sense of accomplishment and success. Then, most importantly, is looking at 5 things that I'm grateful for during the day. So they can be very small things like, having food on my plate, having running water, just basic things. Because, when we're grateful for the small things in our life, the quality of our life gets enhanced and it becomes all that much better. And then we begin to receive so much more. So gratitude is really important in those reflections. And it's also acknowledgement and giving us a sense of hope and a sense of appreciation for what we have actually achieved.
And when we talk about well-being, are we talking about emotional well-being, mental well-being, or what kind of well-being are we talking about here?
All aspects of well-being, absolutely. That's well-being is multifaceted. So to me, there's 7 main areas of well-being. So as you say, emotional, mental, physical, social, environmental. What else there? Goodness. And also we have to also work upon our purpose in life, which impacts on our well-being. in our environment in which we live, we need to be mindful of traffic, for example, and where we're living, like the pollution levels and all of those stresses that might be added into our life. So well-being is a multifaceted. So it's not just if I look after my physical well-being, then everything else in my life is going to be perfect. No, it's not. I think that we have to understand where the areas are in the well-being equation that we need to work on, that we lack in, and we need to work on strengthening those areas so that we can live a better quality of life. Because, we aren't just physical beings, we're also mental and emotional people. And we're also very social people. So we've got communities, so we can do community activities. So well-being has various dimensions to it, which are all very important to be looked after.
And if someone has struggle in any part of their lives, and listening to this, that they have 7 facets of well-being, and it's not possible to work on everything at once, we can pick one thing at a time. So how can they start focusing on one thing? Let's say mental well-being, if they want to start working on their mental well-being, where can they start from? Do they go for therapy or read books? What recommendations do you have for people?
So with mental well-being, and in fact I've designed a questionnaire that covers each of the areas that somebody can answer and self-reflect, and then they can even understand in their mental well-being which is the area of their mental well-being that they need to look at. So I think with mental well-being, the first step is really to do a bit of reflection, like you say, and then it's to reach out to somebody who can help you out of that, because we can often get stuck in our own minds and in our own way of thinking. And, it might not be that you're going to go and pay to see a psychologist who you might not be able to afford to see, or you might not want to go to that formal length of seeing somebody, but you might be able to look up on the internet a call line that you could call, or you might be able to look at meetings that are held around the type of mental well-being problem that you have. I would say yes, books are a good thing to look at, but when we're in a state of mental trauma, it's always good to reach out to others and to get advice and help from others. Like the podcast that you're creating, Nishan, I think they are great because, it's a good thing for people to listen to and to understand, well, look, I'm not alone in this. So many other people have felt the same way that I feel, so it's just to sit and relate to other people as well, and to try and to speak about it without judging yourself, because I think the more that we open up to others, the less that they actually judge us, because the more they begin to understand where we are coming from and why we're behaving the way we behave. So I would say the first step is really to reflect, and then to find others that you can speak to about it, and then take it from there.
And this is very powerful, and this is not, I think this may not be for mental well-being. This is applicable to all the areas in our lives, that, becoming self-reflective about it, and having awareness about it, what's working and what is not working, so that we can move forward, and slowly moving forward, not trying to do all at once.
Absolutely. And, a problem shared is a problem halved. And there is no truer saying for me than that. When we try to carry our burdens all by ourselves on our own shoulders, everything just seems so much worse. Sometimes it's called the dark night of the soul. When you experience that deep distress within ourselves. And there's nothing better than being able to reach out to somebody else and just share a problem with them. And sometimes we find that our problems aren't as big as we're making them out to be.
And how do you deal with stress now in your life, since you have a couple of practices to deal with?
Yeah, and like you said, life is always full of challenges, and there's always so much more that I want to achieve with my life. So I am faced with challenges continually, and I do have stress very frequently. One of my favorite outlets is exercise. there's nothing more that makes
Is
me
it
feel better
physical
than
exercise?
physical exercise. I used to never do any physical exercise, and now it's just the endorphins and the chemistry change in my body does so much for me. So one of my biggest stress relievers is to do physical exercise. Another thing that I absolutely love doing and that I can't live without. So I found that physical fitness really helps keep me mentally sane on a daily basis. It's something I never used to do in the past, and it's something that has become absolutely a necessity in my daily routines now. Last year I decided to invest a whole lot of time in my physical fitness, and I actually fulfilled one of my very long-term dreams of competing in a bikini fitness competition. And I got into the South African, my province that I live in is Gauteng. So I got into our Gauteng provincial team. And then I competed at the South African level, which was quite an achievement for me in itself, given the fact that I'm 46 years old. I was 45 years old at the time. It was quite a feat for me to develop that amount of muscle and, to get down to that level, that very low level of body fat. But, I think with me having a bit of an obsessive compulsive personality, that I've learned that, everything in moderation is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of exercising 5 to 6 hours a day, I've kind of tapered down my exercising now to 3 hours a day. I also used to swim competitively, and I had my Transvaal swimming colours, and I came first in South Africa, and I held the school swimming record for a long time. So that was before I left school. And I think after I left school, I didn't engage in any fitness activities. And that was really when it was accompanied by deterioration in my health, and particularly in my mental health.
So, how many hours of workout do you do now?
I would say that I do about 3 hours of exercise a day, and that includes some cardio exercise, some weight training, and some yoga. So it's really a combination, and it's a lifestyle choice.
3 hours is a long time. So, how do you manage to incorporate those 3 hours in your busiest schedule every day?
The key for me to keep me on track and motivated is that I have a coach myself, and that has helped me immensely with my physical fitness goals, because it is one of my weak areas. And I get up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, and then I will do an hour of fasted cardio, because that works for my body type, which gets my whole system moving. And then I'll have breakfast, and then I'll exercise later on, either in the morning or later on in the afternoon. And then I'll do yoga in the evening, which when I add it up, it looks like it's about 3 hours in total. But as it's split up into different parts of the day, it doesn't seem as much when I'm doing it.
What did you have today in the breakfast?
Well, this morning it's not quite what it should be, because we are in lockdown. So, and I'm not as strict with my diet plan. So this morning I had toast. I don't actually eat bread that often, and eggs. Yeah, but normally my breakfast would be if I was training for a competition, it would be 1 whole egg and 8 egg whites. And when I'm not competing, it's 1 whole egg and 4 egg whites. Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who is not able to work out, or they cannot find time to work out in their busy life?
I think exercise is important. A lot of studies supports the fact that if we do at least 15 to 20 minutes of sort of movement a day, where we're walking at least, it adds 2 years to the average 40-year-old's lifespan. So, you can do things like steps. So you can take the steps instead of an escalator at work. Just make sure that you get probably just a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes of some form of physical exercise in each day. And it doesn't have to be that you go to the gym. It can be something that you really enjoy. Like, there's all different forms of things that you can do. You can even take a class, or you can do some form of basic level yoga or Tai Chi or even fencing. But there's a whole range of different physical exercises that you can involve yourself in that, you might feel a particular resonance with. That is because we're all very differently made up. So we'll all enjoy very different things.
So in terms of you just talking about Tai Chi, yoga. So apart from working out in the gym or strength training, you have those practices. So how do you rotate those practices in your daily life? Do you practice that every day, or you have a schedule?
I pretty much prioritize my well-being above every single other thing in my life, and my life has dramatically changed for the better as a result. I've actually been able to achieve so much more. So first and foremost, I make sure that I've got at least time to do 1 to 2 hours of exercise each day, and then my work comes second. So it depends on, I go to the South African School of Yoga to do my yoga. So it depends on when the yoga classes are being held and when that fits in with my daily schedule. And then the gym is open basically all day until late evening. So I'll just make sure, depending on what my deliverables are, what my meetings are for the day, I'll make sure that I'm able to fit in my physical exercise and my yoga when I can, but making sure that I get a bit of it done every single day, because I know that it's kind of fundamental for me to operate at my best level. So, I'm very flexible with myself. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned, is not to be so controlled and to get so disappointed when things don't fit into a perfect diary schedule for the day, but to be a little bit more flexible and just put things in when I can.
And if you can do it sometime, it's okay. You just don't beat yourself for that.
Absolutely. It's it's the 80-20 rule. The whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. So, as long as I'm kind of being consistent, even if I have 1 or 2 bad days along the way, that's perfect for me.
Could you explain 80-20 rule for our listeners?
So, yeah, I think that, you don't have to do everything 100%. You can do things like, you can do only partially something, and you'll get like way more benefit from not doing things 100%, which is like, you can do things like, if you do things 20%, you'll get, a lot more benefit than going all out and doing the thing completely perfectly. And I think that's important to remember, is that we don't have to do things 100% all the time. We can just do them partially, as long as we tried and we did them, and we can build on that.
And there is a very good book on that 80-20 rule. So doing 20% things, that gets you 80% of the results in any area of life. It can be 10-90, it can be 30-70, 40-60. So the thumb rule is how to achieve more by doing less and fewer things. That means is doing the effective things in an efficient way, doing the effective things the right way.
Yes, brilliant. I love that. And it's really what I found to be the truth with my life as well. My personal experience completely resonates with that.
And what's your morning routine look like these days, or usually?
My morning routine. So I'll generally get up. I like it when we're not on lockdown. I've had to adjust my routine a bit for being on lockdown. But generally, if we weren't on lockdown, I'd get up at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I would go and train in the gym for about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. I'd do my cardio session, come back, have some breakfast, and then start working. So that's basically my morning, is getting the first gym session in early morning, and then, having my breakfast. And also I have a daily planner. So I'd look at my daily planner before I go about starting any tasks for the day, just to see what I've got on the go for the day, and, if I need to shuffle anything around, or what I need to have together to gather my thoughts.
What about coffee? You don't drink coffee in the morning?
Okay, I did think that was a bit of a given. Yes, coffee is definitely one of my vices, and it is the first thing that I have when I wake up. Is I have a cup of black coffee the minute I wake up, and
Do
that's
you add
the one.
sugar in that?
No, I don't. And it's the one, it's actually if you're competing and you're dieting quite, hard to get your body fat down and to really get your muscle tone showing, coffee actually becomes a treat because towards the end of the dieting, you can't even have coffee.
It is tough. It is challenging. So basically, competition for anything in life requires a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of struggle. So how do you motivate yourself? How do you prepare your mindset in the preparation of this competition, physical competition?
So for the physical competition, it's very personal, I think, in terms of our body image and in terms of physical appearance for each one of us, what we want to achieve. But for me personally, I'm a highly competitive person. And, when I set my mind to do something, I want to win. So, I do extensive amount of research. I get involved in the actual community. So, I make friends with other fitness girls who are competing in the industry. Like yourself, I also do podcasts. So I do some podcast interviews with people in the fitness industry who actually compete and who coach themselves. I have found myself who to me is an excellent coach who is, I feel, the best in the business. It's just because we have a click and we resonate very well. I might do a couple of physical gym training sessions with an excellent personal trainer to keep me on track. But I can't do it all by myself. And I know that. Like, I can definitely research. I can put in the training hours. I'm very self-disciplined. I can put in the dieting, diet absolutely perfectly. And I've got that image that I want to succeed and I want to achieve a certain image and a certain look. And then, of course, there's posing practice where you have to stand in your bikini and you have to pose and flex in a certain way so that you can show your muscle development in certain areas and your body symmetry. And you've got to have a great stage presence and confidence. And that all requires work. And it's self-discipline and it's a lot of work. And I think it's important to have a good support structure and work with people who've been there and done it before. And let me tell you, with everything in life, it's not easy. And, you've got to have people who are going to stand there and they're going to keep on pushing you through, because many times, you can have this crisis of confidence where you feel, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I can't possibly do this. How can I stand up on stage in my bikini? And, it's just pushing you through those dodgy moments where I completely lost my self-confidence a couple of times along the way.
And we have used the word image, body image, and I want to touch on this concept of body image and self image with the physical fitness. So, what is the correlation between self image and physically fit?
I think it's very personal. I don't think that the outer appearance is going to provide a sense of a good self-image. I think a self-image is based on self-acceptance and how I can speak for my own personal experience and what I've seen in others that I've worked in a lot of groups with, and I've heard their stories and I've worked with a lot of people. But I think self-image is something that's inside us, and it's how we believe our life is, and it's how we conduct ourselves in our daily lives and how accepting we are of ourselves and the mistakes that we make in our lives. And I think that, your physical appearance is actually secondary to your self-image, and your physical appearance is a result of the things that you believe about yourself and what you think you're capable of. And it's a reflection of how much you love yourself, and how much you're willing to look after yourself, and, how much you're willing to care for yourself. Self-discipline is required when one is dieting and sticking to quite a strict routine.
And
But
yeah. And do you ever see or meet people who have really good physical appearance, but they may not have good self-image in terms of self-worth, self-acceptance?
definitely. And the external is very often misleading. And yeah, there's a lot of people who look absolutely fantastic. And, initially on face value, I would have thought, my gosh, they've got everything together. They're absolutely perfect. They look incredible. I would love to look as amazing as that person. But when you get to speak to them, you realize that they've also got issues that they're dealing with. And there are some things that they're struggling with in terms of their own self-image.
Yes, and we put a lot of focus on our physical appearances, which is good, which is great. And along the same side, we get to be focused on our inner being and working towards the whole well being, not just the physical well being. And I have read one great book. I'm not sure if you know about that book. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. That book was
I've
written
never
in
heard of it.
1950s, and it's amazing book about
Wow.
developing confidence, about self-image. And that book was written by some plastic surgeon. So they have a lot of case studies where they do plastic surgery on people. They look beautiful from the outside, but they don't believe in themselves. They feel shitty about themselves, but they have beautiful appearance. So when you see somebody physically attractive, you perceive them in a different way, but how they perceive themselves is a different story. You might give them 10 on 10, but they might give themselves maybe 2 on 10, you know? So it's about how you perceive yourself, how you think about yourself. What's your self image, your self confidence, that acceptance, that self worth. If that piece is there, then working on physical appearance and physical fitness becomes easier to some extent.
That's incredible, and I completely agree with that. I mean, that's very insightful. And, I think in today's world, potentially a lot of people have become very mental, and there's been a lot of focus on how clever people are. And, in order to get ahead at work, you've got to prove that you can, you're more clever and you work harder and you can find solutions quicker. And often it's been to the detriment of people's physical health. So I also think that there's some sort of balance that we need to find, in terms of like what we place our own value, how do we value ourselves? Do I only value myself on how clever I am? Or do I only value myself on how good my body looks and my physical appearance is? Because or my finances are, and that's when it comes back to the 7 dimensions of well-being, which is physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, financial, social, and environment. And all of those factors contribute to our sense of well-being and to our self-image.
Yes, this overall well being plays a key role in our life. Focusing on one thing for a long time may bring imbalance. I think imbalance for a short term is fine, but if the imbalance persists for a long period of time, that may cause some harm that may not serve our life in a better way. Belinda, what ignites you in life now?
What ignites me in life, I love to travel and learn about different cultures, and I am a lifelong learner. So learning new things and seeing new places and meeting people of different cultures, that excites me and enlightens me in, gets me going in life. It's just so much to learn from different people and different cultures. It's just fascinating how different people live and to learn their different ways. That really excites me.
What relationship do you have with yourself?
I have a very relaxed relationship with myself, very accepting. And yeah, so I would say it used to be very harsh and uptight and judgmental, but after a lot of work, I've become very much more accepting and relaxed with how I go about doing things. So I think self-acceptance is a big one for how I feel about myself now.
And there is a very amazing book on self acceptance. And the book name is Radical Self Acceptance by Tara Brach.
Oh, that sounds great. I must definitely read that.
And how do you manage shame if you have any now? That's a tough one.
um, it has been really hard. I think I manage shame by being open about what I'm shameful about, opening up to others and putting it out there. I reflect on why I'm feeling that sense of shame, what is giving rise to it, and then discuss it with other people. Because the more open I am about the things that I feel shameful about, it sort of takes that shame away from me.
And is there any conversation from your life that comes to your mind that has the most impact in your life? It could be positive or negative. Any impactful conversation? Let's just stick with positive.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest impact that any conversation has ever had on my life would be this dear man who's actually passed away now, who was in the last rehab facility that I was in, who said to me that, he believed in me. And he said to me that he really admires me because I have got a lot of self-discipline. And he said it to me at a time when I didn't believe in myself and when I thought that I had no self-discipline. And that has stuck with me. And it has actually got me through very many difficult and challenging days. When somebody sees something in you that you just didn't see in yourself at the time, or you didn't think, was possible for you, that has stuck with me. And it was the most wonderful, wonderful thing that anybody could have said to me at that point in time.
Could you have some words for our listeners so that they can believe more in themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I think that everybody has got unique qualities, and stop looking at what other people expect of you and, trying to live up to other people's expectations, and maybe just take some time for yourself and find out what it is that makes you happy, what it is that you really want in your life. And you wouldn't have those desires, and those wants wouldn't be placed in your heart if you didn't have the capability and the ability to actually go about achieving them. And you need to believe in yourself that you can achieve anything that you put your mind to. Anything is possible for you if you persist with it, if you put a good plan together, and if you seek the help and support of your community. You can achieve anything that you really want.
Well, thank you, Belinda, for the motivational believe in yourself wisdom. And where can our listeners and audience find you online?
So I have a website, which is www.welladvisors, and that's advisors with an ERS.com. My contact details are on the website. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my name is B. Carrera on LinkedIn. My full name is Belinda-Jane, but some people find it a little bit formal, and everyone prefers calling me by my nickname, which is B. Yeah, and I've also got an Instagram page, which is also B. Carrera.
Well, thank you, Belinda, for this amazing, fun-filled conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Nishant. It's been wonderful chatting with you. And yeah, I look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. And thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode today. I hope you learned from this episode that you can apply in your life. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe to the podcast, The Nishant Garg Show, on Apple Podcast. You can also subscribe to the show through my website, https://nishantgarg.me, NISHANTGARG.me. You can also share this podcast with your family and friends or whoever want to feel fulfilled. And thank you so much again.